Hey, welcome to a little streaming thing that Darcy and I are calling Split the Party. Kind of just finding out how everyone's doing out there as we are all socially distancing ourselves, isolating ourselves,
hmm
quarantining ourselves. And As you can see, Darcy and I have built a little blanket fort for in our isolation, and it stretches from Seattle
Yeah.
all the way to
So
Chicago.
I'm so sorry for blotting out the sun today, everyone, in the middle of that. But I have a cute ivy plant that I just know I'm going to be too excited to share with all of you if I don't introduce it now. So hi, I'm Darcy. This is my ivy plant, and this is my cute, split the party zone. Welcome to this cozy event with us.
Well, all right. So how are you doing, Darcy?
I'm doing really good. It's been funny how time has felt very odd lately, but I feel like maybe it's because of this event, or possibly also, the team of MCG has been getting together on Fridays just to have a totally casual hangout over Zoom. And like, man, that's kind of been really important, like an important like signal of the end of the work week for me. So I'm actually feeling like I'm feeling the weekend feelings right now, which is really nice. And I'm under a cozy, beautiful blanket fort. So I'm feeling really good right now. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I've got a tasty beverage. I've
Nice.
got this blanket fort made of my old space blanket
I
thing,
love it.
and um, yeah, things are going okay. I think Darcy, you and I and everyone at MCG probably have an unfair advantage, I think, compared to the
Yeah.
rest of the world because we work from home all the time,
hmm
and we kind of know how to do it,
Yeah.
and how to survive and how to stay sane.
hmm
And this is new to a lot of people. But it can be fun.
hmm
And you can do your laundry while attending a meeting.
Yeah. I've I also liked that when I first joined the company, I was surprised and delighted at how like, there's kind of a culture here of like everybody's looking to find kind of more optimal and healthier, better kind of work-life balance and like structures that help our work from home to like go really well and to like address some of the problems that inherently has. So I love that like ever since I've joined, right? Like there's kind of this constant interest in, how cool articles we find and like cool tips we're trying or different like structures we're checking out. So I think like a lot of people will probably be discovering some of those tools for the first time, and I'm it certainly feels a little different now, even for us. Just the frequency with which I don't leave the home means I'm having to innovate even a little more. But I think like yeah, I do really like the work from home experience. Like I worked and gave myself a foot bath in a bucket the other day. It was great. I highly recommend working with like a little bucket full of like cute salts with your foot soaking. So there are perks. You're right.
And your cats always get to be around.
Mm-hmm.
It would not be true if you had to go into an office.
And my cats are usually really around, which fortunately they're like sleeping it off right now, maybe.
I saw a very funny thing that people were doing early on when we were all self isolating, where they were posting things that their pets were doing, but they were putting it in the terms of my coworker.
Yes.
So
Oh
the
my
funniest
gosh.
one was that to me was my coworker just came in, puked all over the floor, ate a cookie, and then fell asleep.
Oh my God. Oh,
Like, yeah, I've worked with that guy.
yeah. Haven't we all? Oh, Tad or whatever. That's awesome. People in chat are talking. I was asking how people in chat are doing. They're bringing up, there's some excitement because Final Fantasy VII, the remake, is releasing today, and some other folks talking about reading Numenera during this isolation and getting their playmat. So, I'm. Oh, I'm actually. This is something you don't know. secrets. I'm going to play a Numenera game as a player, not on a stream tomorrow with some old like grad school friends and friends of theirs. I think I've seen a lot of people like organizing games just to like get to see faces again, and I get to do that. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Awesome.
How about you? Any gaming? So you have some ongoing, usually in person games. Have you transitioned totally to digital?
I have. And in fact, we're gaming even more frequently because, what else do we have to do?
Yeah.
But we were playing Invisible Sun, and it's possible to play Invisible Sun online. I know a lot of people have done it. I've done it. But it is not my preferred way to do it. So we are playing other things. I'm kind of playtesting some new stuff that maybe we will be talking about here in 6 months or so or something. But yeah, a lot of gaming. And when I wrote your best game ever, I put a small chapter in there about online gaming, and I find that I like online gaming a lot. Is that chewy?
My coworker here likes to stand in front of the camera and also scream during my meetings. So, yeah, thank you, bud. Good boy, Chewy.
And I find it to be really true that I can't. For some reason, it is more draining.
Yeah.
To play online than it is in person, and I've because of self-isolation and everything that's going on, there have been some interesting articles written about like why Zoom meetings and interactions are more taxing, and that there are all these like subtle psychological cues that you base things off of when you're in person with someone that actually reduce these neurochemicals in your own brain that it's why we're sort of hardwired to be social creatures. And while it's better than just talking on the phone, it still is not a true replacement for being.
That is so interesting. I saw you post that link. I need to check it out. But it reminds me of a really good Lindsay Ellis YouTube video. I don't know if you've ever seen her stuff, but
I have.
Yeah, just incredible dissections of like film theory and fun, understandings of pop culture. Just really, really smart, entertaining videos. And she has one and kind of returns to it called About Bayhem, which is Michael Bay creates these big, flashy, explosive-y movies that are like super messy and all over the camera. And she has this one video that dissects the Michael Bay film, I think, like Transformers or one of the Transformers. And the question she opens up with this video is, why can't I remember what happens in Transformers? Like, I, Lindsay Ellis, love this media, this property. I had a fun time when I was in the theater. And I guess her friend was like, yeah, so how about it when Bumblebee, a robot kind of peed on that guy? And she was like, that didn't happen in that movie. She goes back and watches it, and he totally did. And she talks about the way that I'm totally giving you a half remembered explanation now, but she talks about the way that there's no consistent focus for your brain to look at. The exciting part of the scenes are not consistent as they cut between frames and stuff. So your eyes are going all over the place, and there's this sort of idea that that makes it harder for your brain to focus on what the important signal is, and so you have less bandwidth to devote to, say, remembering what's happening or digesting it. But I think it's interesting that Zoom is kind of the opposite, right? It's removing signal, but you're having to search through a less feature-rich environment to get all the context. So you're still working harder, right? I wonder if it's,
I'm sure our brains are working. We're trying to pick up on those things that we're used to in a social interaction, right? Mm-hmm. Did she also do the video where she sat and watched the movie The Mummy, the Brendan Fraser, The Mummy, with an Egyptologist?
No, I don't know if she did, but I want to watch that so bad.
I can't remember if that was her or someone else, but it was great.
Oh, dang.
It was great.
I recently rewatched that movie, and it has some rough parts, but it is so fun.
That's what they said too, right? And it was interesting because they pointed out all these things that the movie actually gets really, really right, and they are tied very closely to these things that the movie gets really, really wrong. And it's weird that they went to the trouble of doing the stuff that was right.
Yeah.
I mean, why bother, right?
Yeah.
It's a mummy.
I just started playing Animal Crossing, which is very exciting, very cozy. And one of the things that I had a similar moment, there's you can catch stuff in Animal Crossing. I'm totally new to all things Nintendo, including Animal Crossing. So apologies to everyone to whom this is basic, but in Animal Crossing, you run around, you can catch bugs. So it is my kind of game. So I go and I catch a lot of bugs. And eventually you get a museum that you can store bugs, fossils, and fish in. And that museum is so extra, I cannot handle it. Have you seen this, Monty?
A little bit. Shauna plays, and I have watched her play. And so I've seen her collecting things and saying that she's going to the museum with them.
Yeah. The experience of walking around this virtual museum is wild. It is so well thought out, and I just can't stop thinking about the people who made this, because they didn't have to make it as good as they did and as extra as they did. It's this tiny piece of this much larger game, but it is just I come from the museum world in science and collections, right? That's my home. And so I know it takes a lot of work to design a good museum experience, and to think about how to use the floor tiles, and how to where you put information, and how you organize things in a way that maybe sets kids or adults up to ask interesting and scientifically relevant questions about why does a bat wing kind of also have 5 fingers like a mouse, and actually it's these evolutionary stories. You can see that playing out in this ridiculously detailed, beautiful, enormous digital museum, and I can't handle it. So I just that attention to detail and that going above and beyond it, and again, it's the Mummy, right? It's they went super extra in this very particular direction for this very tiny subset of the game. It does kind of stick out, but it's so delightful I can't be mad. It's really cool. They've got actually true fossils and fossil facts in it too. It blows my mind. I found a coprolite the other day, which is fossilized, dinosaur poop, and It was awesome. Highly recommend. Yeah.
I kind of felt that way when I was playing Red Dead Redemption.
Ooh.
And they put all this time and attention into making hunting be super, super realistic, and you had to stay downwind from the the animal that you were hunting and everything. And yet they couldn't figure out how to make the game so that I would quit shooting people.
Oh,
right?
No.
Because I was playing in the PlayStation, right? And there are 2 triggers on the PlayStation controller. And one you shoot, and one you talk. And so how many times did Monty walk up to a guy in town? Hey, how you doing? Bang! Oh, wrong trigger.
Oh my gosh. I usually don't play big online games because is this Red Dead Redemption 2 you were talking about?
Yeah, but I didn't play the online.
Okay.
With other people.
Oh, version. Right, because you can just play the story mode.
Right.
Well, I dipped into. I got Red Dead, and I have not dived into it at all really yet. I find it kind of intimidating, but I know it'll be lovely once I get into it. But I basically was too bad at the game in story mode, and so I was I'll just go online and mess around so I can just sort of have some free play, figure out my horse. I learned how to pet the horse. It was very important, very good. But I my first interaction with another player was I'm walking around in town. And I was oh, is that a new player? Is that another human? And he walks up to me and he punches me to death. And I was that was another human. Okay. I was this is why I don't do this. Luckily it was, the consequences aren't so bad that I felt bad about it. It was more funny, but
You've just invented a new Turing test where you can tell an actual human from an AI. The actual human will just beat you
We'll
to
just
death.
beat you to death. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So, are there? What are people saying? How are you guys
Yeah.
doing in chat?
People are doing really good, it sounds like.
Surviving this weird pandemic. By the way, I have pandemic hair.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
here's the thing. I live in Seattle, and that's where the COVID-19 sort of started in the
Hmm.
U.S. was in the Seattle area, and so we started social isolating really long time ago, right? I
Hmm.
think at least like a good week before anyone else did, and like as soon as that started, I was in badly in need of a haircut at that point, and that was I don't know 4 or 5 years ago now.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I'm leaning into it. This
Yeah.
is this is what my hair looks like now.
Uh, it's I feel like I've benefited slightly. So possibly my haircut has brought upon this horrible event because I had the dire intention of growing out my sides, which I've never done. And so I was sort of like I timed it to be the winter, right? Like, okay, I'm just gonna like wear hats. I'm not gonna go outside a lot. Gonna grow out my weird hair. Hi Chewy, thank you. Um, and then now I have many more weeks of not leaving the house with my weird hair. So I do feel like I'm benefiting in a weird way from this. Oh my gosh. Sorry. Chewy is running off with a piece of chocolate. So I'll be right back.
All right. Well, this is this is the way in which you know that this is unscripted and real.
It's lost to the sands of time. No one will
Uh,
know where that chocolate went. That's very sad. My coworker took my chocolate and hid it from me. Um,
that happens. That does happen.
yeah. People in chat seem to be doing good. There's some folks who are talking about how they were introduced to us through No Thank You Evil. There's some
Oh, cool.
Cypher Unlimited folks hanging out. People
Hey
talking,
guys.
yeah, people talking about Red Dead Redemption being something they fell away from because like there's a lot of like killing innocent people over and over again, which is also kind of a turnoff for me. But the hunting could be better at least. I don't know. Hunting is less.
Not for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I actually would rather kill people than animals. I don't know what that says about me.
Yeah.
I, but yeah, I mean, like, if I pick up a new game and the first thing right out of the gate, I've got to like kill dogs or wolves or something,
Yeah.
bigger for me. And that's a lot of games, including Red Dead Redemption. I don't know why I stuck with it. But
Yeah. Did you ever play any of the new Lara Croft Tomb Raider stuff?
not the new stuff. No.
Okay. It's very beautiful. Chewy. Wow. I don't know if you can hear that, but it's a lot. Okay, good boy. Yeah, so the new Tomb Raider stuff is like very beautiful, but it like takes a very long time to get to like the spelunking around in a cool ruin, which is really what I'm there for. And there's
Yeah.
a lot of just like violent murdering and being murdered and lots of elaborate cutscenes of when you like don't hit the action button right and you get crushed by rocks or impaled. And so it's like I like wasn't good enough at the game fast enough, and so I was just like replaying cutscenes of me like dying horribly, and then I would like, and they had these like I felt like it was a real dissonance of like the they would have these cutscenes where like Lara was like really choked up about she's a young girl, she has to like kill this dude to stay alive, and then like you have her kill like 100 more dudes immediately, and then like it's just this like either she's killed literally thousands of people on this island and she's an absolute murderer, or she's just trying to stay alive, right? I like games where like they let you at least sort of opt out of the combat more often. Maybe that game does, but I think it really intends for you to like engage with the combat, kill the things, move on. And
I've just recently returned to No Man's Sky, which I was telling you about earlier, and No Man's Sky is a little bit like Call of Cthulhu in that both games, if you enter into combat, something's gone terribly wrong.
cool.
right? In
That's
No Man's
exciting.
Sky, like it's so easy to avoid. I mean, it's so easy to avoid combat that you can just have a whole completely non-violent. I mean, you can fight. You can go
Mm-hmm.
find things to fight, but you totally don't have to. You have to go seek it out.
That's really wild.
Yeah.
I also liked the mechanic of like Horizon Zero Dawn, which I have not played all the way through someday, but you can like, there are these robotic animals sort of things running around, right? And at some point you unlock an ability to kind of like turn them from being like violent to like non-violent or like friendly. And like I love the idea. Like I would engage with games so much better if the end result was not like killing but neutralizing the threat, right? Like I could really rock that in a lot more games, I think. Someone's recommending
Yeah.
Subnautica, which I've also heard recommended a lot. I know it's underwater. I think it's kind of like survivally, but I think it's kind of like gentle and not super like, doesn't ask you to kill things a lot. It's sort of exploring underwater cool stuff. So that does sound good.
I mean, I have played a lot of first person shooters and
Mm-hmm.
those kinds of games, but I feel like now more than ever we kind of need something that is a little slower and less violent and a little more thoughtful and
Mm-hmm.
um, maybe when the world becomes a better place, we can go back to having our fiction be a little harsher, right?
Yeah, yeah. Is there any? Yeah. What else are you doing to kind of like wind down or find inspiration or find respite?
Um, well, so we Shauna and I are watching. We're trying. We missed one day, but we're trying to watch a movie every day this month, and we are making it so that it's like a chain. So we watch a movie, and then we find a movie that one of the actors in
Mm.
that movie was in, and then watch that movie, and then take a different actor, and so they all connect up. And it's been fun. It's got us to watch some movies that we probably never would have watched, which is good and bad.
Mm. Any surprise like highlights or a movie that?
You know, both of us kind of resisted to watching Joker,
Oh yeah.
which was this huge hit, and you would think would be right in sort of our wheelhouse of comics and whatnot, but I had a really wrong impression of it. I guess I thought it was. You know what I was really afraid of? I was afraid it was going to be like Incel the movie, right?
Yeah. That frankly, that's what it
And and
felt like in
and
the
it
lead up.
yeah, and it doesn't come across that way.
Mm.
And they did some interesting things, creating some. I don't want to be spoilery, but yeah, it was pretty good. And if for no other reason, you can just watch Joaquin Phoenix
Yeah.
do this amazing performance
Mm.
of a totally insane person, which
Yeah.
and it's kind of painted as an origin story, but honestly, he's insane from the very
Oh,
first
interesting.
frame, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
and the thing that is also good is while it's really fun to watch him as a great actor, at no point is the movie sympathetic toward him, right? I
Oh,
mean,
that's super important.
he's the
Okay.
Joker, right? I
Good.
mean, the Joker's a mass murdering psychopath, right? And so if
Right.
you suddenly tried to make a movie that was like super sympathetic to him, I don't even know what that would look like. I don't know that would be something I'd want to watch.
Someone's bringing up a movie I don't know, which is most movies because I haven't seen anything. But someone's saying that his best was Max in Space Camp. Have you ever seen that? I'm not familiar.
Space Camp?
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I mean, what? Joaquin Phoenix was in Space Camp. I have to think way back. I haven't seen Space Camp since Space Camp came out, which was what, like 1982 or 83 or something like that.
There's a couple
Maybe
people going, "Oh
87.
yeah,
I don't.
Space Camp! Oh my gosh, that's awesome."
And I'm sure you weren't even born yet, were you, Darcy?
I was not. But as we're learning, time is a fictional concept that we are all have the bubble has burst on time meaning anything lately. So
it's true. I have been doing a lot of. This sounds sort of more pretentious than I mean it to, and than it really is. But I'm kind of teaching myself cosmology and quantum physics.
Ooh, cool.
Just kind of, I don't know. I find that if I ever get to a point where I'm not learning anything new, life gets really boring really fast for me. So anyway, it just made me, you talking about how time is a meaningless concept.
You're steeped in that right now.
It actually is. It is an utterly meaningless concept, right? And now we're even learning that space space might not be the same thing here as it is, way, way, way over there, right? I mean, because the universe could be expanding at different rates.
I saw that headline, but I don't know how to wrap my head around that. And I don't know that you can fix that for me in, the space of this hangout.
I don't know if I could, right? I mean, I still get stuck on, I hate to admit it, right? But like I know the answer. I intellectually understand it, but I don't think I fully wrap my mind around the fact, like when you talk about space expanding, what's it expanding into? Well, the question itself is irrelevant, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's, but still it's hard not to imagine, the universe, right? And
the preposition into, right? Like, or, expanding, right? Like the way we've built language and the way we've built our brain is a model of the world around us. It doesn't compute with that.
Right. Even, the word expanding implies, right,
it's
things that it should not imply.
Somewhere new,
right?
Someone's asking, or Spigs from Cypher Unlimited is asking whether there are any shows on Netflix, Hulu, or Amazon Prime that we're watching. This is not an answer to your question because I'm a jerk, but it's free. So Picard, I just started Star Trek Picard, and I was really not thinking I would like it because what I really want is Picard to be an old man in a French villa having long, quiet conversations with old friends. That's what I want. Or possibly just his space recorder. That's what I want. And I knew I was not getting that. And so I was like, oh, it's going to be action Picard. And I don't want action Picard. I want, slow, sad, boring Picard. But I have to say, they have these really gentle, space-giving, character moments that are absolutely keep me back in the game. So I'm enjoying it.
I have watched the first episode and I was surprised by how much I liked it and how good it was. And I say that because I'm actually not a huge Star Trek fan. I mean, I've watched it all because, back in the 90s, if you were a science fiction fan, you watched Next Generation because there wasn't anything else, right? But yeah, I enjoyed it. I think I got to see that free somewhere, and I haven't gone and gotten CBS All Access or whatever it is you have to get to watch that.
I think because of the times we're in, I think they made it all free. So if you wanted to dip back in, that's been my understanding.
Cool.
Which was nice. Yeah. We have a Shauna Germain in the chat, which is exciting. Ooh. Hi, Shauna.
Hi, Shauna. So I have an answer to that question.
Yeah, please.
Which is, I'm gonna. There's a lot of great stuff, but I think it's getting a lot of. I mean, I could say all the things, and they would be all the things that you would sort of expect me to say. So I'm going to try to go a little bit deeper. And on Amazon Prime, there is an Amazon original show called Undone. And Darcy, I think you would really like it. And really, I recommend it to everybody. it's really hard for me to explain to you, and I don't want to go too far into it. It's animated, but it's animated in a very it's I think they used motion capture, so
Mm-hmm.
it's a very realistic way that it's animated, and it's just really good. It's really well written. It's really well acted, and the plot is really original.
Ooh, I feel like that's all you needed to say. That is high praise coming from you, I feel like. Not that
Yeah,
you're stingy
yeah,
with it, but you immerse yourself in a lot of different kinds of storytelling and you think about that sort of thing. Okay.
yeah.
Is it pretty short?
I think they're half an hour episodes. I think, if I remember correctly, and there's only like six. So I mean, you can binge your way through it in a
Mm-hmm.
weekend probably pretty easily, if that's your thing. But it's really quite good, and um, I'm trying to think who the main female actor is. And I can't think of her name, but yeah, it's really good.
um this is this is a casual hangout, so I'm going to bring up this kind of not connected thought, but Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka in The
Oh,
Mandalorian
that's going to
season
be
2.
awesome.
Oh my gosh. I'm so excited. So I'm not like super caught up on like the Clone Wars animated series. I think like I'm at least a season behind and probably more, but I really liked it when I was watching it. And I loved The Mandalorian, and I live for Rosario Dawson. I think she's great in everything I've ever seen her in. And I got this audiobook, Artemis, I think it's called, by the same guy who wrote The
Oh,
Martian.
yeah. Hmm.
And it was like kind of an audible, like original, sort of written with audio in mind, which was very cool. And it's like Rosario Dawson is like a, cool semi-criminal on a like moon base, basically. I think I'm sure I'm getting details wrong, but she's so good. It's so good, and she's coming to The Mandalorian in a great role. So I'm super looking forward to that, even though I know it's a long way away.
Mandalorian's another great example of something that was better than I was expecting, and really better than it needed to be.
Yeah,
Right? Which is a
totally.
weird thing to say, but like, you know, we just kind of wanted a Star Wars TV show.
Hmm.
And what we got was actually something really well thought out and well written, and yeah, I mean it's really good.
It is. Yeah, highly recommended to anyone who hasn't seen it yet. It does come for the feels though. I feel like I also wasn't expecting that. There's some nice tender moments, and
Hmm.
yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
I feel like, man, if that had released before Halloween last year, do you know every baby in the entire world would have been Baby Yoda that year? Every
Yeah.
baby. It would have been amazing. I feel like we'll get a do-over next Halloween because this year's just been so weird. I feel like I give you all permission to dress up your cats, babies, other small creatures as Baby Yoda for Halloween next year.
Anybody else have any? If you have got questions or stuff you'd want to talk about in chat, just let us know. Darcy's watching it,
Yep.
and we're happy to be here for you.
Yeah, if you have questions about like,
Um,
yeah, all kinds of stuff, we'll take them.
yeah, anything. Want to hear some old TSR stories, or I don't know, anything you want.
Hmm.
Um, are you reading anything? Do you read any good books lately? I've been doing a lot of reading
Yeah,
in all of this.
I was reading at a pretty good clip for a while, and partly because I started using my library a lot more, like getting the ebooks on my Kindle, and so then there was a deadline, and so I was just burning through them. And after Knives Out, I got like really just an itch for murder mystery kind of stuff, which is not really anything I've read before. So I read The Sweetness at the Bottom of the Pie, which is
I've
kind
heard of
of
it.
yeah, it's I it might not even be the first book in a series, but it's kind of like a 1950s young girl investigating a murder in like a British countryside town. It's so I had watched.
I haven't narrowed anything down yet.
Yeah,
because you've just described a lot of these books.
exactly. I know. I had played. Oh gosh, there's a video game that I played that was very much in that genre. That was super good. That's name is escaping me. But anyway, I read this book, and what I really like about it is like, it's pretty well written. It's fun. It's good. But like the girl is like obsessed with chemistry, like just deeply obsessed with it, right? And so it's like her worldview, and the book is like peppered with these like really interesting stories about like, and like just beautiful stuff about her, her talking about a given poison, or her talking about, amazing chemists of the past and their grisly ends, and like, all these fun, like it's clearly written from someone who like went on a deep dive, just loved chemistry and all it was about, and its ancient origins and the people and the stories, and the visuals of it, and the smells and the ichors, right? Like, and it just brings a really weird, fun, like every time that I was kind of like, not feeling parts of the story or something, some weird chemistry thing would bring me back in. And I'm like, I respect chemistry. I'm no expert and I don't know a lot about it. And so like, it's not speaking to me as someone who already loves chemistry. I think it just like hooked me in its love for this field. So I really enjoyed that.
Cool.
Yeah. What have you been reading?
I'm finishing up a sci-fi novel called The Children of Time, which I really highly recommend.
I have it right here. I'm going to show you the cover.
By Adrian Tchaikovsky.
Because we're under the same blanket fort, I can just reach over and grab it.
Right. Here, yep. I'll hand you my copy.
Thank you. Children of Time. I haven't read it yet, so yeah.
It's really good. All you need to know about that is it is a book that actually utilizes evolution. Ooh. Which is weird, right? I mean, because it means that the story is really, really long.
Yeah.
And also that at least one of the main point of view characters is a spider.
Yes. Yeah. That was the fact that someone went, Darcy, there's a spider in here, and their main character handed me the book. So, I'm so excited. Have you finished it?
I'm just like a couple. I'll finish it tonight.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. We're getting some good questions, so I want to turn to those a little bit.
Do it.
Michael Little is asking whether you have any advice for like writing game supplements. He elaborates a little further, like, creating game-rich environments where the characters can gain interesting items, information, or nuances in role-playing that make their lives richer in the context of the campaign they're adventuring in. So, yeah, I feel like you could take that question in a number of directions. I'm going to post it in our Zoom chat in case you're inspired by any piece of that.
So, you're right. There's a million things to say. We could talk for hours on that topic alone.
Yeah.
But here's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. And that is that in role-playing games, lots of times the player characters are outsiders. They're outsiders of the situation, mm-hmm. right? I mean, if we're looking at Dungeons and Dragons, right, which is sort of the mm-hmm. archetype, the GM comes up with some elaborate plot, and there's villains in a dungeon to explore and all these things, right? And the players come from the outside of it and like have to figure out what's going on and ask the local people in the tavern, all that stuff. And they're always outsiders. And I think one way that you can try to kind of create those dynamic situations and those dynamic relationships for the players is to try to avoid that if at all possible. And it's hard. And it's particularly hard when you're doing a supplement, because the difference between creating an adventure for your friends around the table and creating a supplement is that you don't know who the players are. You
Right.
don't know who you're writing this adventure for when you're writing a supplement. So that's really hard. But like one thing that you could do is you can create a situation so that the players quickly become a part of things, right?
Mm,
Like introduce an NPC really early on that becomes their friend that they have ties to. And and frankly, like in most role-playing games, all you have to do to accomplish that is make that NPC not a dick. Because
yeah.
most NPCs, right, they're either sort of faceless or they're
Right,
jerks,
right.
right? And so if you just make somebody who's like a nice person, and you will find the players are drawn to them,
Mm,
and then through that person they can become a part of that setting, and then whatever the plot is that you're trying to involve them in suddenly becomes, it's closer to them, right?
right. Ooh, I like that. Yeah, I'm thinking about how you've written, I could see those threads like coming into play for adventures, right? But also for like, I'm thinking about all the paging I did through Tallis, right? Like it's rich with characters, right? And characters who want things, or characters who have quirks, or characters who are going to be related to a store that the players will get it on. So, I think like characters as a vector of setting and rich campaign environment is really smart.
Yeah. I mean, Talos is actually a pretty good example of that, because I mean, you can be an outsider. You don't have to be from Talos to be the
Mm-hmm.
player character. But the idea is that that's your city, that's where you live, and so the stuff that's happening there, it's affecting you, right?
Right.
It's where you live.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Some folks are asking some questions about like what's up and what's new with MCG. One of the specific questions that I would love to hear an answer about is Spigs is asking how, if we can say anything about the playtesting for We Are All Mad Here. Like, how's that gone? And
Oh,
any
that's gone really
impressions?
well. That book is we're just getting sort of the last two pieces of art in, and we're going to be wrapping that book up pretty quickly here, which is
Yeah.
exciting. It's really cool. I've been in some of those play tests, and it's been a lot of fun. It's got a very unique feel, which is something that I always look for, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've been playing games for a long, long time, and so anything that can give me kind of a new experience, will kind of appeals to me even more than other things, and it definitely does that. And yeah, I don't know what else to say other than can't wait for you to see it.
Yeah, it's really cool. I won't add too much to that until we sort of have like the free preview up and stuff. But like I guess one thing I've been fascinated by is we have The Stars Are Fire, we have Stay Alive, we have We Are All Mad Here, right? And we will have Godforsaken later on. And like, I think when the Your Best Game Ever Kickstarter had happened, I had this idea that like, you know, these books would be pretty similar in format, right? Because they're taking on, they're each, going to provide you a cool new campaign setting. They're going to provide you cool new mechanics and like genre advice, but they really are built wildly differently. Like the design of the supplement as a tool, like that higher level, like there's just a lot of, like they look completely different as books, right? And there's super different tools that, in hindsight for me, right? Of course the things that you need to prepare someone to run horror might look different than the things you might want to provide to give cool sci-fi versus like, I got to make, I guess I'm just fascinated by like all the work that I know Shauna did looking into themes that emerge across fairy tales and folk tales and like ways that you can kind of like, I'm trying to remember what specifically, but like ways you can kind of combine, mix and match different elements that tend to recur in fairy tales or subvert them. Like she does a lot of work doing a lot of that research into what makes something a good fairy tale, or what makes something, gives you that feeling, that texture of fairy tale or folk tale. And like that's honestly what I would have worried most about running my own games for. So it's like it's a really powerful tool set that she's built there.
I remember when she and I were talking about it really early on, she, asked me what did I think should be in a book like this? And I said, if I was going to sit down with this book and run games using it as a game master, I think the first and probably biggest question that I would have is, how is running a game like this different from a fantasy game?
Yeah,
right?
great
There's
question.
magic and spells and monsters and witches and, all those things. How is that? And so the book does a really good job of making fairy tales like its own thing, right?
Yeah.
It's not just fairy. It's not just fantasy.
Right.
And the thing that you're talking about with all those books actually being fairly different is very intentional from the beginning. I trying to think of politic ways to say this. So I have worked for other publishers in the past, and who very much sort of designed a template and a format and said, okay, this is the way this project is going to be, and it's going to be just like all the other ones. There's going to be 12 pages of this and 3 pages of that. And, I said from the outset, I just told it, because each one of these books has had a different primary author. I said to everyone, make the book that you want to make the book that needs to be, because you're absolutely right. Like the kinds of things that you need to know to run sci-fi are really specialized, right? And very different than what you need to learn to run horror, right?
Yeah.
So and anything else, but like I think both of those books, Stars of Fire and Stay Alive, are also fantastic.
Oh yeah.
In their approach to their genres.
I love one of the things I loved about Stay Alive that I haven't had a chance to use at the table yet, but is which I should really fix now that. What else do I have going on? But I loved like the breakdown of different, subgenres of horror. And like, I love that Sean built a template for himself on how he was dissecting different subgenres of horror. And like, I love the what makes this scary, right? Like, it's one thing. I just love that he drilled into these deeply enough that like, it's such a good vehicle for the research he did into like what horror is and what makes it work for humans, and then what makes it work at the table, which are very different questions and probably different, painfully many hours of research that he had to do and thinking and I'm sure development with the rest of the team, right?
It's when I was a kid, and just like, of course I started with D&D and then I was branching off into other games and was ultimately pretty disappointed at first, because the sci-fi games that I gave a try, maybe it was just the way we were running them or whatever, but it was just D&D in space, right? And the horror games were just D&D but with tentacles, and
right.
And that's not representing those genres very well. Every genre has its own very different needs. If your goal is to really try to portray that genre.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah.
What else do we have?
Yeah, we have some people asking, is there any impact to MCG about, sales or book runs, with this, global pandemic we're doing? And, I think, I'm pretty distant from it. I'm not a part of the leadership long-term planning and stuff, but it seems like you guys have done a lot of work to, look at the situation. And I certainly really appreciate the leadership team has been really great about trying to take care of us as a team and as employees, as well as looking at how our schedules might be impacted. I don't think we have anything specific to share that I know of, but
no,
we're on top of it.
Our schedule will be impacted. It's just a question of, does that mean everything's going to move back a couple of weeks,
Mm-hmm.
or is it going to be more than that? And frankly, we don't know yet.
Right.
And a lot of it's out of our control,
Mm-hmm.
right? If the printer isn't printing, right, which they are not right now, um, then there's not a whole lot we can do.
Right.
Um, but MCG as a team is moving along. Everything is going well. In fact, you probably, or maybe you have seen, we're actually taking the next couple of weeks off as
Mm-hmm.
a team, and part of that is because the printer is shut down. A lot of our warehousing that
Mm-hmm.
goes to into distribution, and the distributors and the retailers are all
Yeah.
shut down. So there's kind of not a lot of reason for us to be
Hurry up and
working right
wait.
now.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm very happy, and I feel very fortunate that we're able to do that,
Yeah.
and we're not like laying anybody off or furloughing
Right.
anyone. I mean, it's a paid time
Mm-hmm.
off, but we're just kind of giving everybody a break because it's here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I mean, it's going to impact us, but we don't know exactly how,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody does, right? Because we don't know exactly how long this is going to last, or
Mm-hmm.
what all the implications are going to be. But
Yeah. I think this 2 week break will be, the 2 week breaks. I'm sure people, we're all still going to be looking at the news. We may try to manage how well we look at it, but, you know, I bet it's going to be kind of important and nice that like we're just going to give our brains a little bit of a break, to not have to try to force ourselves to be the most productive, best humans we can be for 2 weeks. I think I'm hoping that I come back from this little break with a lot just calmer, more to give, and to be able to like just feel a little more functional. That's all I'm asking. If I feel like just a little more functional when we return, I will feel pretty happy. So,
it is very difficult right now to be productive, and I will say it is. I'll speak for myself, but I'm also see this in other people too. It is
mhm,
very hard to be creative right now.
mhm,
Um, for me, and I think for a lot of us, like, to really do creative work, you've got to sink down into it pretty deeply
mm,
and immerse yourself in it. And you can't do that if there's a little voice in your head that's just like, oh, you better check the news to see if, the CDC
mm,
guidelines have changed, or
yeah,
whatever, right? Whatever silly little incremental thing that you want to look at every 3 hours
yeah,
or whatever. And I wish I could just turn that part of my brain off, but I've never lived through a pandemic, so I don't know how to do that
yeah.
yet.
We're all new to it. Speaking of creativity, we got a question that is really interesting from Michael Little again. Do you have any insights or lessons that you've learned from like Gene Wolfe? I don't know. Do you have did you get to meet him, spend time with him, or just mostly read his
I,
books?
I took a class from Gene Wolfe.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize
Yeah,
that.
in Chicago, in fact. Um,
Hot dang.
yeah, he lived on the north end in one of the
Wild.
suburbs. I can't
Mm-hmm.
remember which one it was. Anyway, yeah, it is difficult to it's difficult to think about how Gene Wolfe applies to game design, and
Mm,
that is because his work is so literary. It
mm,
is so um, deep and immersive,
mm-hmm.
and interior,
Yeah.
that but in as writing in general, I think that what what I learned from him is is some reader empathy, right? Think
Mm,
about uh, how the reader is going to come to what you're writing, and and I guess that applies to role playing games too, right?
Yeah, very much.
And how um, everyone is going to bring sort of their own uh, baggage
Right.
to whatever it is that you're going to create, and so thinking about how that might be true, uh, like um, I think about like the Book of the Long Sun, or Book of the New Sun rather.
Mm-hmm.
The Book of the Long Sun is different. Um, he chooses to use this vocabulary, which is real, but very removed,
Archaic and
right? Yeah,
yeah.
archaic, very technical. And he did that because it's very interesting that like everybody comes to those books and knows some, like, oh, that was the
Yeah.
name of a, that's what they called a, whatever. I can't think of anything, but you know, uh, like I remember, like the first thing that I remember coming upon like that my first read through was he encounters a monster in the book. The main character does, but the name of it was actually the name of an actual creature that lived, a mammal that
Right.
lived in uh, Pliocene probably,
Right.
and I recognized it, and that was the moment I was like, wait a
Mm,
minute, he's not just making this stuff up, right? I mean, he is, but I mean, and that was my moment for that, but somebody else would have a different moment like that, and that's, I don't know, that's very interesting.
mm-hmm.
It's kind of like it's kind of like understanding that everyone is going to have a different way in, like, and so you're
Ooh.
creating something that doesn't have just one entrance, I guess, right? It's like building a
Yeah.
building but having multiple entrances.
That seems extremely relevant to game design, right? Again, that
Yeah,
how do you
yeah, it
write
is.
for, you know, how do you write a content that the story will be written by players, by protagonists that you haven't met yet, right?
Right, right, and run by a game master who is going to have his or her own
Yeah.
um sort of outlook and baggage
And strengths and yeah.
strengths and weaknesses. Yeah, I mean, it is challenging. That is I keep going back to that, right? But that is probably the most difficult thing about game design, and why so many people say, oh, I don't use published adventures because my players like my adventures better. Well, you know in a way, of course they do, right? Because
Yeah.
your adventures were written for them, right?
Right.
And so in order to write a good published adventure, you have to, yeah, have multiple ways in, right?
Oh,
That you can take it and make it your own. I think that a lot of people, when people ask game designers, role-playing game designers, a lot, like, what's the official take on this rule, or
yeah.
what's the official view on this thing in
Mm-hmm.
the setting, and the answer often is, well, whatever you think it should be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when people hear that answer, they think, oh, that's just a cop out, right? That's
Right.
just the easy answer. But it's not, right? That is the answer,
Yeah.
because if you rely on the game designer to answer the questions that you have and to fill in the gaps that you see,
Mm.
then your game's not going to work, right? Because the game designer's not in the room there with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got to just take it and make it your own, and hopefully there's some cool stuff in there to use, and hopefully you can come up with some cool stuff on your own.
Yeah. I like that. Um, a metaphor my roommate John Harness and I talk about a lot, I think, is skipping rocks, right? And I think that that metaphor has been really useful for like my trajectory as a GM, right? And just someone who engages with games, like, and I think the difference is, my Numenera game versus Gene Wolfe's The Book of the New Sun, right? The Book of the New Sun is this deep, deep dive, very interior experience. And my Numenera game, I might have lots of really great ideas and lots of interior thoughts about what makes this setting really rich and what are, the interesting details that are there for the players to discover. But because it's collaborative, because it's all of us working together and fast-paced and strange, and it's going to bounce off in directions we didn't expect, we're only going to be touching the surface of that interesting content. And so I think learning how my game prep started, my game prep is the lake underneath the surface that we're skipping rocks along. But I think I got a lot more relaxed about, making differences, making changes that were appropriate to my players, going off book of the modules, being willing to change things for my own sake, because they're not going to see the inconsistencies that I've created in the world because they don't have the full picture. So, yeah, I think that's totally right.
And here's the weird thing about specifically thinking about Numenera, but I'm sure it applies to everything. When I first came up with the idea for Numenera and first started the very first few play tests, which the game mechanics didn't resemble the finished game mechanics at all, and they're very, very different. That game and the vision for that game was very different than the finished product.
Oh.
And the finished product was very different than where I think Numenera is now.
Yeah.
And even if I was going to sit down and run a game of Numenera for you right now, it would be different than what I had originally envisioned for the game. And so things evolve, and even as the creator of that setting and those rules, I have been influenced by the other people on the MCG team, other players, other GMs that I have played with, and the whole thing is just very different now. And sometimes I kind of lament that, but most of the time I see that as it's something actually a little bit magical, right? It's like a whole new thing that maybe I couldn't have created all by myself. If I was just on a desert island with a word processor, right? And so that's very interesting to me to think about how that sort of almost inadvertent collaboration works.
That's super interesting. Did Invisible Sun have that experience? I know it has such a long tail of, gestating in your head, it seemed like. Is that closer to, I don't know, how does that compare to Invisible Sun, I guess?
Invisible Sun, I would say, is the finished product is more like what I had originally envisioned for it. And as it evolved through the various supplements that have come out and whatnot, it has stayed probably more true to that vision than originally. And I'm not even saying that that's better or worse or anything, but that is true. That it has stayed sort of more true to itself than Numenera has.
Yeah, I don't think either of those run into a value judgment at all, right? I think,
no, I don't. And I don't mean for them to.
Yeah, super interesting. It sounds like there's some folks about to run off and go run their very first Roll20 game. So good luck, Lutherian.
Awesome.
This is very good to hear. Fun. Yeah.
Hope it goes well.
Yeah. We're about up to our hour. Is there any other things you wanted to share with Chad or well wishes before our break?
Well, so one thing that I was thinking about is, so we at MCG have started using this Spotify add-on called Jukebox that basically allows you to play music for other people using your Spotify account, like in a group, right? You can all get together and one person is the DJ and plays music. And so I've been threatening that I would do this and I would be the DJ, and I would just play music that sort of was the music that I listened to as I was developing Invisible Sun. And Invisible Sun music is something that I have been asked about a lot. And
Mm,
so I thought I would just talk about some of the stuff that would go on that playlist.
yeah.
And if anyone is interested. And here's the thing, though, Invisible Sun's one of those things where I can imagine someone starts playing this music and they would just be like, "Oh, this isn't Invisible Sun to me at all," right? Because
Ooh,
music is very subjective and
and
whatnot.
layered.
Yeah, yeah. But if you wanted to know any of this sort of music, it would be in no particular order. The Swans, or actually they're just Swans, particularly the album called The Seer.
Mm,
Liars, particularly this album called Wish You, which is spelt Wixiw, but it's
mm.
pronounced Wish You. Pretty much anything from Qualia, Grails, or apps. Um, the Yes double album Tales from Topographic Oceans is all about magic. David Bowie, Black Star.
Oh, yeah.
And then just a couple of other artists that I would throw out there would be Micah Levi, Oliver Arnolds, Blue Neck, Beware of Safety, and Stars of the Lid.
Dang. Yeah, I wonder if we can build that out as like a little playlist. If you DJ even for us or something, we might be able to save the queue and share that with people.
Oh yeah,
Um,
sure. Yeah, I mean you'd have to have Spotify, right?
right.
But yeah, yeah, we
That's
could
really
do that.
cool. Did you, how many of these, are these a mix, like, are these just things you like encountered randomly? Like, yes, I bet, you heard a while ago, but are some of these, did you like go out in search of more weird music, or is this all kind of stuff you more organically came across?
Um,
How much of this is directed, I guess?
yeah, that's an interesting question, and I'm not exactly sure how to answer it.
Mm-hmm.
I my tastes in music are very eclectic, and I will often go off on strange tangents. A lot of the music that I just talked about actually isn't very similar to each other.
Mm,
And so I probably kind of came upon them at different times.
mm-hmm.
And then the few that are very similar, like someone might say that Qualia and Grails are similar a little bit, and I came upon them kind of at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
just through online music services and
Mm-hmm.
stuff, because they will make suggestions, and
Yeah.
or even just putting something into Pandora,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're gonna get more stuff that is similar. So yeah, and then like you said, and some of this stuff has been with me since forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes is definitely the oldest thing on there.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
That's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to post that. Maybe we can do that as like a blog article or something. Can put it up on the website, because I think a lot of people, it seems like I saw that Jackson Lansing, who's a really cool comic writer and a big old nerd. Go follow him on Twitter. He's great. He has been doing some radio isolation or something. He's been using this jukebox Spotify app to DJ for his friends an hour a day or a couple times a week. And I know that he was playing some song, and I really liked it. And I was saying so in the chat, and he was like, "This is what I open every one of my Invisible Sun sessions with, is this song." And I totally forget what song it is, 'cause
Oh
I'm the worst.
no.
I know. I'll find out. I'll put it in the video after, down below. But I feel like I've talked to a lot of people who like, so much about that game is atmospheric. There's so much design in the components and the books. And so I feel like a lot of people take that next step and really lean into, music and adding that. So I think people would love that.
The Invisible Sun game that I was running before COVID-19 came along,
Mm-hmm.
the characters, the thing that ties the characters all together is that they're criminals. They're like con artists, and they do heists, but obviously it's Invisible Sun, so it's all magical and surreal. And so I like to play music during the game. And one of the things that I really like to do is I like to pick a song that I think of as the theme song for the campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the song that I start every session with to kind of get people into the mood. Cool. And so yes, similar to him. And that song was a song by Grells, or a piece by Grells. I think it's Deep Politics is the name of it.
Ooh.
Or no, I'll have to look it up.
We're on weekend vacation time, so
I haven't run my game in like a month and a half, and it sucks.
Yeah, dang.
Yeah, I miss it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I hope your other games will tide you over, and likewise mine. I'll probably do a lot of game reading over this break, which will be nice.
Yeah, I'm gonna be running even more games than normal.
Oh my gosh, really?
on during the break, because
nice.
because that's fun for me. That's not work.
That's great. All right, well, I think chat, it was great having you here. If you would like us to do another one of these, this was really fun for me. It was a nice way to close out the week, have some cozy fun talking about media we like. I really love the questions you asked, chat, and I liked hearing about your weeks. So thank you so much for participating.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Be safe, be healthy.
Yeah.
Wash your hands.
Yep. And we'll be back in 2 weeks. And we hope you're all big old nerds in the meantime. That's my good wish for you. All right. Good night, folks.
Good night.